The Human Cycle by Sri Aurobindo. Chapter 8. Civilization and Barbarism. Once we have determined that this rule of perfect individuality and perfect reciprocity is the ideal law for the individual, the community, and the race, and that a perfect union and even oneness in a free diversity is its goal, we have to try to see more clearly what we mean when we say that self-realization is the sense, secret or overt, of individual and of social development. As yet, we have not to deal with the race, with mankind, as a unity. The nation is still our largest compact and living unit. And it is best to begin with the individual. Both because of his nature, we have a completer and nearer knowledge and experience than of the aggregate soul and life, and because the society or nation is, even in its greater complexity, a larger, a composite individual, the collective man. What we find valid of the former is therefore likely to be valid in its general principle of the larger entity. Moreover, the development of the free individual is, we have said, the first condition for the development of the perfect society. From the individual, therefore, we have to start. He is our index and our foundation. The self of man is a thing hidden and occult. It is not his body, it is not his life. It is not, even though he is in the scale of evolution, the mental being, the Manu, his mind. Therefore, neither the fullness of his physical, nor of his vital, nor of his mental nature can be either the last or the true standard of his self-realization. They are means of manifestation, subordinate indications, foundations of his self-finding, values, practical currency of his self, what you will, but not the thing itself, which he secretly is, and is obscurely groping, or trying overtly and self-consciously to become. Man has not possessed, as a race, this truth about himself, does not now possess it, except in the vision and self-experience of the few, in whose footsteps the race is unable to follow. Though it may adore them as avatars, seers, saints, or prophets. For the Oversoul, who is the master of our evolution, has his own large steps of time, his own great eras, tracts of slow and courses of rapid expansion, which the strong, semi-divine individual may overleap, but not the still half-animal race. The course of evolution, proceeding from the vegetable to the animal, from the animal to the man, starts in the latter from the subhuman. He has to take up into him the animal and even the mineral and vegetable. They constitute his physical nature. They dominate his vitality. They have their hold upon his mentality. His proneness to many kinds of inertia, his readiness to vegetate, his attachment to the soil and clinging to his roots, to safe anchorages of all kinds, and on the other hand, his nomadic and predatory impulses, his blind servility to custom and the rule of the pack, his mob movements, and openness to subconscious suggestions from the group soul, his subjection to the yoke of rage and fear, his need of punishment and reliance on punishment, his inability to think and act for himself, his incapacity for true freedom, his distrust of novelty, his slowness to seize intelligently and assimilate, his downward propensity and earthward gaze, his vital and physical subjection to his heredity, all these and more are his heritage from the subhuman origins of his life and body and physical mind. It is because of this heritage that he finds self-exceeding the most difficult of lessons and the most painful of endeavors. Yet it is by exceeding of the lower self that nature accomplishes the great strides of her evolutionary process. To learn by what he has been, but also to know and increase to what he can be, is the task that is set for the mental being. The time is passing away, permanently, let us hope, for this cycle of civilization, when the entire identification of the self with the body and the physical life was possible for the general consciousness of the race. That is the primary characteristic of complete barbarism. To take the body and the physical life as the one thing important, to judge manhood by the physical strength, development, and prowess, to be at the mercy of the instincts which rise out of the physical inconscient, to despise knowledge as a weakness and inferiority, or look on it as a peculiarity, and no necessary part of the conception of manhood. This is the mentality of the barbarian. It tends to reappear in the human being in the atavistic period of boyhood, when, be it noted, the development of the body is of the greatest importance. But to the adult man in civilized humanity, it is ceasing to be possible. For, in the first place, by the stress of modern life, even the vital attitude of the race is changing. Man is ceasing to be so much of a physical and becoming much more of a vital and economic animal. Not that he excludes or is intended to exclude the body and its development, or the right maintenance of and respect for the animal being and its excellences from his idea of life. The excellence of the body, its health, its soundness, its vigor, and harmonious development are necessary to a perfect manhood, and are occupying attention in a better and more intelligent way than before. But the first rank in importance can no longer be given to the body, much less that entire predominance assigned to it in the mentality of the barbarian. Moreover, although man has not yet really heard and understood the message of the sages, in quotes, know thyself, end quote, he has accepted the message of the thinker, quotes, educate thyself, end quote. And what is more, he has understood that the possession of education imposes on him the duty of imparting his knowledge to others. The idea of the necessity of general education means the recognition by the race that the mind, and not the life and the body, are the man, and that without the development of the mind, he does not possess his true manhood. The idea of education is still primarily that of intelligence and mental capacity and knowledge of the world and things, but secondarily also of moral training and, though as yet very imperfectly, of the development of the aesthetic faculties. The intelligent thinking being, moralized, controlling his instincts and emotions by his will and reason, acquainted with all that he should know of the world and his past, capable of organizing intelligently by that knowledge his social and economic life, ordering rightly his bodily habits and physical being. This is the conception that now governs civilized humanity. It is, in essence, a return to and a larger development of the old Hellenic ideal, with a greater stress on capacity and utility, and a very diminished stress on beauty and refinement. We may suppose, however, that this is only a passing phase. The lost elements are bound to recover their importance as soon as the commercial period of modern progress has been overpassed. And with that recovery, not yet in sight but inevitable, we shall have all the proper elements for the development of man as a mental being. The old Hellenic or Greco-Roman civilization perished, among other reasons, because it only imperfectly generalized culture in its own society, and was surrounded by huge masses of humanity who were still possessed by the barbarian habit of mind. Civilization can never be safe so long as, confining the cultured mentality to a small minority. It nourishes in its bosom a tremendous mass of ignorance, a multitude, a proletariat. Either knowledge must enlarge itself from above, or be always in danger of submergence by the ignorant light from below. Still more must it be unsafe if it allows enormous numbers of men to exist outside its pale, uninformed by its light, full of the natural vigor of the barbarian, who may at any moment seize upon the physical weapons of the civilized, without undergoing an intellectual transformation by their culture. The Greco-Roman culture perished from within and from without. From without, by the floods of Teutonic barbarism; from within, by the loss of its vitality. It gave the proletariat some measure of comfort and amusement, but did not raise it into the light. When light came to the masses, it was from outside, in the form of the Christian religion, which arrived as an enemy of the old culture. Appealing to the poor, the oppressed, and the ignorant, it sought to capture the soul and the ethical being, but cared little or not at all for the thinking mind, content that that should remain in darkness, if the heart could be brought to feel religious truth. When the barbarians captured the Western world, it was in the same way content to Christianize them, but made it no part of its function to intellectualize. Distrustful even of the free play of intelligence, Christian ecclesiasticism and monasticism became anti-intellectual, and it was left to the Arabs to reintroduce the beginnings of scientific and philosophical knowledge into a semi-barbarous Christendom, and to the half-pagan spirit of the Renaissance, and a long struggle between religion and science to complete the return of a free intellectual culture in the re-emerging mind of Europe. Knowledge must be aggressive if it wishes to survive and perpetuate itself. To leave an extensive ignorance either below or around it is to expose humanity to the perpetual danger of a barbaric relapse.